Now we will start with the new chapter, chapter number 8, called gravitation. Now in earlier days we are already familiar that any object which is thrown into space, it is attracted by the earth. A ball which is thrown upwards, it falls down. A stone which is thrown upwards, it is attracted by the earth. And also we are aware of climbing the hill is tiring than moving downhill. Now these are all observations indicate that something is going to attract all the objects. The earth has that property. Later onwards, scientist Galileo, he concludes that earth is going to attract all the point objects which are thrown upwards with a constant acceleration. And he also found that now this acceleration is constant irrespective of mass of the object. Whatever may be the mass of the object, all the objects are falling down with a constant acceleration. Later onwards it is called as acceleration due to gravity. That is G. Now these observations illustrates that this earth has an attracting power, and that attracting force we called it as gravitational force, and the gravity, that property called it as gravity. Other than this earth gravitation, if you look at the space or in the universe, we observe that all the stars, planets, everything is moving. Now stars appear to be fixed at some points, but the observation of planets indicates that they are not fixed, they are moving in the background of stationary stars. Now these indicates that the celestial objects are in motion because of some force that we call it as gravitational force. Now Claudius Ptolemy proposed the first planetary system. It is called geocentric. Geo means earth. The planet system is earth centered. Around the earth, all the planets are revolving. He proposed this one, and that planetary system was called as geocentric system. It was proposed in 2000 years back. Everyone accepted that one. Earth was at the center around which all the planets they were revolving. But later onwards, some other scientists made observations. That is Nicolaus Copernicus. He proposes that heliocentric system with the keen observation of the planets and stars. He concludes heliocentric system. Helio means sun-centered system. According to Nicolaus Copernicus, sun is at the center around which all the planets are revolving in circular orbit. He considers the orbit of all the planets as circular. Now he was opposed by all the peoples, because up to that stage geocentric system was accepted. Earth was at the center around which all the planets are revolving. If we look at the outside, we feel that Earth was at the center and all the other planets are revolving. But as and when he proposes this heliocentric system, Sun was at the center and all the planets are revolving in circular orbits. But later onwards, one more scientist, Tycho Brahe, he observes the night sky throughout his life and he took the information of this heliocentric system and he got so much information that the planets they were revolving around the sun in the same circular orbit. And later onwards, he recorded so many data for a long years, and his assistant Johann Kepler, he has given three important laws regarding the planetary system. They are called as Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Now here Kepler proposes that this circular path of the planets was wrong. Planets were revolving around the sun in an elliptical path. An egg-shaped path, elliptical path, not in a circular path. He proposes that one. Then he proposes three important laws regarding the planetary motion. They are called as Kepler laws. Kepler's laws of planetary motion. So that was regarding the introduction part. Now we will study Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Now first law is also called as law of orbit. Orbits. Now this law states that all the planets are revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit. All planets are revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit, not in a circular orbit as proposed by Nicolaus Copernicus. Nicolaus Copernicus proposed that all were revolving in a circular orbit, but according to Kepler, all planets revolving around the earth in an elliptical orbit. With sun is at one of the foci. Now what is this foci? If you consider an elliptical orbit like this, now this is an elliptical orbit. Now this is the longer side and this axis is called as major axis. And this one is the shorter side and it is called minor axis. Now along the major axis we are having two focus points. Now here it is one and this is, if I call it as F1 and this is F2. These are the two focus points. They are called foci. Now he says that first law, all planets are revolving in this elliptical orbit with sun is situated at one of the foci. ಈ ಎರಡು ಫೋಕೈಲಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸನ್ ಇರೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಪ್ಲಾನೆಟ್ಸ್ ಗಳು ಎಲಿಪ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸುತ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಲಾವನ್ನ ಪ್ರಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಲಾ ಆಫ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ಸ್. ಇದು ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಡಿಕ್ಟರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಕೋಲಸ್ ಕೋಪರ್ನಿಕಸ್ ಏನ್ ಪ್ರಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ನಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಡಿಕ್ಟರಿ ಆಗಿ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ದಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಲಾ. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಲಾ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಲಾ ಆಫ್ ಏರಿಯಾ. Second law is called as law of area. Now in this elliptical orbit, if I consider a planet at this point and after some time it is coming to this point. If I take this as P point and P dash. If I join the planet to the sun by a straight line. Now this is the line joining planet to the sun. Now here also if I join, now this gives the area covered by the planet in a given interval of time. In the same manner, if I consider the planet here some point Q and here it is some point Q dash. Now how we have chosen these 2 points? The time taken by the planet from moving from P to P dash should be same as the time taken by the planet to move from Q to Q dash. That means here the planet has to travel a smaller distance. Here the planet has to travel a larger distance. Now here this is the line joining the planet to the sun. Now what does the second law states that? Law of area states that. The line joining the planet to the sun sweeps out equal area in equal intervals of time. Now this line SP is going to describe or cover equal areas in equal interval of time. That means the area SP dash, it should be is equal to area SQ dash. In that manner, that planet is revolving in elliptical orbit. Now this is possible only when the planet moves slower when it is far away from the sun, and it moves faster whenever it comes closer to the sun. Based on this observation, Kepler given the second law. The line joining the planet to the sun sweeps out equal area in equal interval of time. That means area of SP dash, it should be is equal to area of SQ dash. So this is observed based on the fact that as and when the planet is away from the sun, it moves slower. As and when it approaches the sun, its speed increases. It has to move faster. In such a manner, the area swept out in equal interval of times should be the same. That is the second. And third law is called law of period. Law of period. Now if you consider a planet is revolving in an elliptical orbit, now T is the time taken to go once around the sun. If I square this time period of revolution, it should be proportional to, now this is the major axis. If I take the length of the major axis from here to here as 2a, now half of this one becomes a and a. Now this is the major axis. If I choose length of the major axis as 2a, ಅದರ ಅರ್ಧ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ a ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಇದು half of the semi major axis ಅಂತ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, a ಅಂತ ಕರೆದ್ರೆ. The third law states that the square of period of revolution of a planet around the sun is directly proportional to cube of its semi major axis. The square of period of revolution of the planet around the sun, that is t square, is proportional to cube of the semi major axis, a cube. It is proportional to a cube. That is third law. Now these are the three important laws of Kepler for the planetary motion. Next we will study universal law of gravitation. Now this was first proposed by Newton. He took all the information of Kepler and even Galileo. And he concludes one important law. Now, before going to obtain this law, he found that while taking a rest in a park, an apple fell down over him. He took that apple and observed that why this apple has fell down. Why didn't it go upwards? And he performs so many experiments regarding that one and throws every other objects. All the objects which are thrown are falling down. Then he concludes that earth has an attracting property. It is going to attract all the objects which are thrown upwards. Then he came to these observations of Kepler and Galileo. Then he concludes one important law that is called universal law of gravitation. It states that every object in the universe is going to attract every other object with a force which is proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. Once again statement, every object in the universe is going to attract every other object with a force which is directly proportional to product of their masses. It is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to square of the distance between those two objects or the masses. That is the statement. Now explanation is, if I consider two objects, I am having here one object of mass m1, here having another object of mass m2. Now these two are having a force of attraction, they are separated by a certain distance r. Now according to Newton, this mass is going to attract the second mass with a force that is proportional to product of their masses m1 into m2, directly proportional to product of their masses, and also the same force is inversely proportional to square of the distance between them, square of the distance between them. Then combining them, we are going to have just a force proportional to m1 into m2 divided by r square. Now if I remove a proportionality sign by putting a constant, that is f is equal to capital G m1 m2 divided by r square. Now this is the expression for the gravitational force. Now f is equal to G into m1 into m2 divided by r square. Here m1 and m2 are the masses of the two objects and r is the distance between the two objects. We have placed a constant here G, it is universal gravitational constant. Constant. Universal gravitational constant. So, if I write it in vector form, since force is a vector quantity, now I have to write minus of G m1 m2 divided by r cube into r cap unit vector, r cube into r cap unit vector. So here we are writing the negative sign. The negative sign indicates that force is always attractive. The force is always attractive. And this gravitational force is always attractive, directly proportional to the product of the masses, but inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the two masses. As the distance increases, the gravitational force goes on decreases. One thing. And this law is also called as universal law. Why they have called it as universal law? Now it is not only applicable for two objects on the surface of the earth, it is applicable for any two objects which are present in our entire universe. ನಮ್ಮ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಯಾವುದೇ ಎರಡು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡ್ರು ಅಷ್ಟೇಯಾ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಗ್ರಾವಿಟೇಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಈ ಇಕ್ವೇಶನ್ ಇಂದ ಕೊಡ್ತದೆ ಹೇಳಿ. Therefore, he generalizes this to the entire universe and it is called as universal law of gravitation. So once again the statement, any object in the universe is going to attract any other object with a force which is directly proportional to product of their masses and inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. Now we are going to find the value of this G, universal gravitational constant. Now that is done by a scientist, Henry Cavendish. He performs a simple experiment to find the value of G. The experimental arrangement is very simple. He took a bar, a long bar of length capital L. At the end of the bar, two small lead spheres are attached. ಒಂದು ಬಾರ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾನೆ, ಲೆಂತ್ L ಆಗಿರಲಿ, ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಲೆಡ್ ಸ್ಪಿಯರ್ಸ್ ಮಾಸಸ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ m ಅಂತಂದು ಹೇಳಿ ತಗೊಂಡು ಅಟ್ಯಾಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. Now this bar is suspended with a string or a wire to the rigid support. This is the arrangement. Next Cavendish took two more larger balls, that is lead balls. Once again they are having the lead ball, larger one of mass capital M, and he places those two larger balls on either side of the two smaller spheres. Lead spheres. He placed these two larger spheres on either side, not on the same side, they are kept on either side. As and when he places the larger spheres on either side, which are also made of lead, now these two are going to attract. Now this is going to attract by this one. Now this is going to be attracted by this one. There is obviously a force of attraction. That force of attraction is given by this gravitational law. G, capital M, small m divided by, if I take D as the distance of separation between the larger lead sphere to the smaller lead sphere, if I take this as D, therefore G square. Now F is the magnitude of the force of attraction between the smaller lead sphere and the larger lead sphere, and is given by this simple formula. So capital G, M1 is capital M and M2 is small m, and D square is the distance. Now what is the net force on the system? Now whatever the force experienced by these two spheres, the other two spheres are also going to experience the same force because they are equal in masses. This capital M, small m, they are equal, therefore they will experience the same force, but the forces are in opposite direction. One force is here and another force is here. Those two forces are equal and opposite. If we calculate the net force is 0. But these two forces are acting at different points. Now this pair of forces, we call it as couple, it is going to rotate. It is going to rotate the bar, it is going to twist the wire. Wire gets twisted. The rotational effect caused by two equal and opposite forces, we call it as torque. As we have studied in the previous chapter, torque. A pair of equal and opposite forces causes a rotational effect acting at different points, and that rotational effect we call it as torque. That means this bar is going to be turned, and hence this wire gets twisted. Now torque is, find out, it is the product of force and the perpendicular distance between the two spheres, that is smaller spheres or the larger spheres, that is distance of the, it is the length of the bar. Therefore torque is equal to G capital M small m divided by d square into L. Now this is the torque. So that thread is going to be twisted at equilibrium, and another torque is developed inside the wire. That is called restoring torque. That restoring torque is proportional to the deflection in, or the twist, angle of twist in the wire. Now, as and when the wire gets twisted, inside the wire, another torque is developed that we call it as restoring torque. Now, this torque we call it as gravitational torque. Because of the force of attraction, gravitational attraction, it produces a torque. Now, after it is twisted, there is one more torque is developed inside the wire. That we call it as restoring torque. Now, that restoring torque is directly proportional to the angle of twist, theta. And that restoring torque is given by tau into theta. That restoring torque is given by tau into theta. Theta is the angle of the twist, and tau is restoring torque per unit twist. ಹಾಗಂದ್ರೆ 1 ಡಿಗ್ರಿಯಷ್ಟು ಅದು ವೈರ್ ತಿರುಗಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟಾರ್ಕ್ ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಟೋ, restoring torque per unit twist, and it can be calculated easy way. ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುವಂತ ಟಾರ್ಕ್ ಅನ್ನು ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಆ ವೈರ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಆಂಗಲ್ ಟರ್ನ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಹೇಳಿ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ 1 ಡಿಗ್ರಿ ಟರ್ನ್ ಆಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಈಸಿ ಇದೆ. ಅಟ್ ಈಕ್ವಿಲಿಬ್ರಿಯಂ, ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಟೂ ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ ಈಕ್ವಲ್, ಅದೆರಡು ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ therefore equating them we get tau theta is equal to G m capital M small m L divided by d square. From this one we can easily work out what is G. Now what is the formula for G? It is tau theta d square divided by capital M small m L. Now by using this relation, if you substitute all the known values, we will get value of G is equal to 6.67 into 10 to the power of minus 11 Newton meter square per kg square. Now this is constant in the entire universe, and hence it is called universal gravitational constant. Now if you consider a point mass and the earth, now this is earth, this is point mass. If the mass of the earth is, if I take it as me, and point mass of small m, they are separated by a certain distance. Now this is at a height h from the surface of the earth. Now this earth is taken as an extended object. That means the mass is uniformly distributed throughout its surface. So if I calculate what is the force of attraction, this part to this point mass, I will get some value. If I calculate the force of attraction, this part of the earth with this one, I will get some value because the distance is changing. If I calculate the force of attraction between this part of the earth and the point mass, I will get different values. So that means each and every point on the earth's surface is going to attract this point object with different forces. Then how can you calculate what is the average force. It is a tedious one, difficult one. In order to overcome this difficulty, we are going to consider two results, very important result. Now, first result says that if I take a spherical shell, now this is a spherical shell, hollow, which is inside is hollow. If I take this spherical shell, okay, the force of attraction between a hollow spherical shell and a point mass which is outside the spherical shell is the same as the entire mass of this spherical shell, hollow spherical shell, is situated at its center. One spherical shell, hollow spherical shell ಅನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಒಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಇವೆರಡರ ನಡುವೆ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಫೋರ್ಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಅಸಂಪ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸೇಮ್ ಆಸ್ ದ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಸ್ಪೆರಿಕಲ್ ಶೆಲ್ ನ ಮಾಸ್ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ದಿಸ್ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಇರೋ ಮಾಸಿಗೂ ಈ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಗೂ ಇರೋ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆಯೋ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಗ್ರಾವಿಟೇಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ವರ್ಕೌಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. The force of attraction between a hollow spherical shell and a point mass which is outside is the same as the entire mass of the spherical shell is assumed to be concentrated at the center. Center point ಇಂದನೇ ನಾವು ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮೆಜರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ಈ ಕೇಸಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ? We have to calculate what is the distance of the point mass from the center of the earth ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಆಯ್ತು. ಅರ್ಥಿನ ಮಾಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಗ್ರಾವಿಟೇಷನಲ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಅಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ದಟ್ ದ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಮಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಅರ್ತ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟೆಡ್ ಅಟ್ ದ ಸೆಂಟರ್, ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಹೇಳಿ. ಇದು ಒಂದು ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್. ನಾವು ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ದ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ. ಇಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೆರಿಕಲ್ ಶೆಲ್, ಹಾಲೋ ಸ್ಪೆರಿಕಲ್ ಶೆಲ್ ಇದು ಹಾಲೋ ಇದೆ, ಒಳಗಡೆ ಟೊಳ್ಳಾಗಿದೆ, ಒಳಗಡೆ ಏನು ಮಾಸ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಬರೇ ಸರ್ಕಂಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಮಾಸ್ ಇದೆ ಹೇಳಿ. ಹಾಲೋ ಸ್ಪೆರಿಕಲ್ ಶೆಲ್ ಇದೆ, ಇದ್ರ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಸ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೆ, ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅದರದ್ದು ಮಾಸ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟೆಡ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರು. ಇಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೆರಿಕಲ್ ಶೆಲ್, ನಾವು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಸ್ಪೆರಿಕಲ್ ಶೆಲ್ ನ ಒಳಭಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಹೇಳಾದ್ರೆ, ದೆನ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ದ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದೆಮ್ ಈಸ್ 0. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಔಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ರಿಂದ ಈ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಗೂ ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಸಿಗಿರೋ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಬಟ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಈ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಸು ಶೆಲ್ ನ ಒಳಭಾಗದಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಅವಾಗ ಈ ಎರಡು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿಗೂ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ದಟ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ 0. ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಸ್ಪೆರಿಕಲ್ ಹಾಲೋ ಸ್ಪೆರಿಕಲ್ ಶೆಲ್, ಹಾಲೋ ಅದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಹೋದ್ರೆ 0 ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆ? ಅರ್ತ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಹಾಲೋ, ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಸಾಲಿಡ್. ಸಾಲಿಡ್ ಕೇಸಿಗೆ ಅವನು ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಹಾಲೋ ಕೇಸಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಆಗ್ತಾನೆ. ಸಾಲಿಡ್ ಕೇಸಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಬೇರೆ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ, ದಟ್ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಲೇಟರ್ ಆನ್ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ರಿಗಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ದ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಂಡ್ Kepler's laws of planetary motion and universal gravitational constant, and how now onwards how we are going to calculate the force of attraction between the earth and the point mass which is outside. Now here the height is h from the surface. Then what is the distance of this point mass from the center of the earth? For that one we are going to add the radius of the earth. Now onwards we are going to take the distance as RE plus h. That is the actual distance between the point mass and the center of the surface of the earth. So it's from the center of the earth. So this concept will be used for further derivation parts.